Gabriel lies on a cot, 32 summers etched into his weathered frame. A dragoon of the 2nd Regiment, his body a history of several campaigns, old and new. A fresh wound in his left thigh, where a Prussian sabre sank deep 6 days past. The infirmary tent sags around him, pitched on the muddy outskirts of Waterloo's silent fields. Its canvas mottled with stains, and thick with the smell of blood, sweat, and the sharp bite of spirits splashed over rotting flesh. His leg aches, a deep, gnawing throb behind the tight stitches, the skin hot and swollen under the crust of linen. A dull heat that pulses with every breath. Once, he rode at the Empire's vanguard, plumes streaming in the wind, a figure of terror and precision through Spain, Russia, a dozen brutal campaigns. Now, he's grounded. A beast, tethered by pain, waiting in this stinking limbo. He takes stock of himself, a soldier's habit, his mind turning inward as his fingers brush at the edge of the wound. The leg's a ruin. Several days since the blade struck, and it's turned sour. The heat radiating from it, a warning he can't ignore. He presses gently, wincing as the stitches pull, feeling the flesh give where it shouldn't. Soft and treacherous beneath the surface. Infection, he knows. Fever's creeping too, a faint shiver in his bones, a sweat that beads on his brow despite the damp chill. His hands, callous and steady, flex against the cot. Still strong. Still capable. Though the tremor in his left betrays the strain. He's tired. Deeper than the flesh. A weariness that seeps into his marrow. Forged by years of riding, fighting, watching men die under his command. The habit of discipline keeps him sharp, but he wonders, quietly, to himself, how much longer it can hold him together when his body falters like this. The tent cradles 100 wounded, their breaths and moans a grim monotony. A drummer, barely 12, lies 2 cots over, his pale face twisted as he clutches a belly opened by shrapnel, his whimpers soft but piercing, a sound that gnaws at the edges of his patience. Across the narrow aisle, an old sergeant slumps, his grey beard matted with sweat, coughing wetly as his lungs labour against their collapse. Orderlies weave through the gloom, their aprons stiff with dried gore, their faces hollowed by exhaustion. He shifts on the thin straw mattress, the pain in his leg flaring like a branding iron, and slides a hand beneath the blanket to touch the sabre he's kept hidden, against the surgeon's orders. Waterloo's defeat lingers like a shadow over the tent, heavier than the damp air. Only a few days since the Empire shattered. Napoleon's banner torn down, France's pride trampled into the Belgian mud. He'd been there, in the heart of it. Sabre slashing through the chaos, his horse rearing as musket smoke choked the sky. He'd held the line, a wall of steel and will, until the retreat sounded, and a Prussian blade found his thigh, felling him amidst the rout. The Grande Armée's glory lies broken now, a dream bled dry. He feels it in his chest, a quiet ache beneath the physical pain. The Empire humbled, her sons left to rot or limp home, their honour a tattered flag. The days stretch long and sluggish, each bleeding into the next with grim sameness. Morning brings the surgeons, their coats splattered with red, their hands swift as they saw through bone or stitch ragged flesh, their voices a low murmur of commands and oaths. "Hold him steady," one barks, as a man screams under the blade, the sound swallowed by the tent's damp walls. Afternoon settles heavy, the heat thickening until the air feels like a wet shroud. Flies buzzing over crusted wounds as men fade beneath the drone. Night sharpens the misery. Groans rise into wails, shadows stretch and twist in the flickering lantern light. He lies still, his leg a constant pulse of pain, and watches it all unfold. The drummer's cries weaken by the morning of the second day, a faint whimper by the third, then nothing by the fourth. His cot stands empty come morning. The sergeant's coughs grew rarer, each one a shuddering heave, followed by a pause that stretches too long. He counts them, an old habit from the field, a way to measure time and life's slow retreat. Beyond the tent, the camp stirs with a restless hum. Through the flap, he catches glimpses of orderlies dragging bodies. The fourth day breaks with a grey smear across the sky. A cart rumbles past, its wooden wheels cracking under a load of bodies, their limbs dangling over the sides. He sees one of the dead stand up and walk off, the fever pulsating between his eyes. He blinks, sweat tickling his moustache. Orderlies linger by the tent's entrance, their voices hushed but urgent. Gabriel tests his leg, pushing against the cot's edge. Pain lances through him, fierce and bright. But he can stand if he must. The fifth day drags in, noon heavy with a damp chill. A woman's wail pierces the air from somewhere in the camp, short, raw, then gone, leaving a silence that presses against the tent walls. The men around him grow quieter, their eyes darting to one another, hands fidgeting with blankets or bandages. "What was that?" a young trooper mutters. But no one answers. The sixth day dawns, pale and cold. A horse whinnies outside. A sharp cry that cuts off mid-note, leaving an abrupt silence. He tenses, fingers brushing the sabre's hilt. His pulse quickening. An orderly stumbles through the flap, his face drawn. "You're still alive?" "It appears so," replies Gabriel. "The camp sounds quiet. Have the army moved further back?" The orderly's eyes flicked towards the flap, uncertain. "Oh, yes. It is quiet. I think it is. But I don't know if they've gone. I don't know where they are. I should go and see." "See? Have you not just been outside?" Gabriel asked, raising an eyebrow. The sergeant lies still nearby, staring at the canvas roof, his chest barely rising. Gabriel can feel his leg growing hotter, the stitches straining against swollen flesh. "I suppose I have." The orderly reaches up to scratch the back of his head. "And?" Gabriel looks at the tent flap, then back to where the man kept scratching. The orderly takes a moment to answer, his fingers digging harder into his scalp, nails raking with a frantic intensity that sets Gabriel's teeth on edge. I don't know," the man mutters, his scratching growing wilder, a desperate rhythm against the silence. "It's all grey out there. Smoke, maybe. Or fog? I can't tell. Can't think straight." His nails claw deeper, skin flaking away in dry, bloodless curls. And Gabriel frowns, leaning forward despite the ache in his leg. "Stubbs, answer me plainly. Have they left us here?" His tone sharpened, but the orderly seems not to hear it, lost in his own fevered motion. A wet tearing sound joins the rasp of nail on flesh, with a sudden, sickening rip. The front of his scalp detaches. It peels back like a torn page, a flap of skin and matted hair flopping forward over his brow, exposing the dull white of bone beneath. The orderly doesn't flinch, doesn't scream. His fingers keep moving, scraping now against the raw skull. Gabriel recoils, his hand tightening on the sabre, breath catching in his throat. "What's happened to you?" The orderly's eyes, wide and unseeing, stare past him, his face a mask of bewilderment as blood begins to trickle from the edges of the wound, streaking down his temples. His fingers gouge at the bone, oblivious, the sound a relentless, maddening scrape. Suddenly, the orderly freezes, his hands dropping to his sides, the bloody nails black in the dim light. I should go," he stammers apologetically, his voice a cracked whisper. Before Gabriel can respond, the man is gone, bolting out of the tent, leaving only the echo of his frantic footsteps fading into the stillness beyond. Then, a sound behind Gabriel. The heaviness of cloth dragging across straw. He squints through the dimness. Sweat beading on his brow, stinging his left eye as the fever climbs. The sergeant sits up, slow and deliberate. No cough, no rasp of breath. Then he stands, his movements pained, his eyes a blank, his mouth slack. A hollow thing in the shape of a man. A murmur ripples through the tent. Another man sees it. A young orderly with a lantern stepping forward. "Sir, are you all right?" he calls, his voice trembling. The sergeant lunges, swift and silent, his teeth sinking into the orderly's arm. Blood sprays, dark and glistening, and the man's screams shatter the stillness. He knows it then. Something is wrong. Gabriel is off the cot in an instant, his leg buckling beneath him as he manages to draw his sabre in a fluid arc. Some men shout, scramble to their feet, but others rise slowly, silently. Figures that were still and silent an hour ago, rising with the same grace, their eyes empty. The tent's a trap now. Canvas walls offering no cover, no lines to hold. Gabriel pushes himself off the ground and limps towards the flap. His breath sharp in his chest, the chaos swelling behind him. Screams echoing, bodies thrashing, blood pooling on the dirt floor. Outside, the camp is a slaughterhouse, caught in the flicker of flame. Tents burn, their canvases curling into black ash, and shadows lurch through the mud. Soldiers, orderlies, camp followers, all changed, laughing, crying, shouting, whooping. A horse rears near a collapsing tent, its scream cut short as two women tear into its belly, hooves thrashing uselessly against the night. Gabriel spots the camp's edge, the surgeon's tent, the picket line, a dark corpse of trees. 100 yards through this madness. Each step drives a spike of pain through his leg, but he shrugs it off, as he has done so many times before. A figure staggers into his path. Another orderly. His face half torn, one eye dangling by a thread. Gabriel swings the sabre, the blade slicing through the skull with a wet crunch, precise and mechanical. The body crumbles, and Gabriel presses on, his breath coming in short, harsh bursts, blood seeping from the wound in his thigh. The Empire's pride is dust. This isn't defeat by steel or cannon. This is something else. Something new. He stills his own grim excitement. He ducks into the surgeon's tent, his chest heaving, the air inside thick with the metal scent of blood. The table is wet and shining in the lantern light, strewn with tools, saws, knives, a snub pistol half buried under a rag. He snatches it, checks the load. 1 shot. A small promise. In the corner, a figure sits. The chief surgeon, a man Gabriel knew as Larry. His coat, stained crimson. A rag, pressed to his chest, where blood blooms darkly. His face is a horror. Eyes gone. Hollow sockets weeping red. Ears chewed away to ragged stumps. Nose and lips eaten off. Leaving a gaping maw, framed by shredded flesh. A grotesque mask that barely hints at the man he was. Yet, his voice, when it comes, is steady. A low murmur rising from that ruined throat. "Doctor, what happened?" Gabriel asks, rough from disuse, as he crouches beside the wreckage of a man. The surgeon tilts his head, slow and deliberate, the empty sockets seeming to fix on him. His lipless mouth curling into a ghastly semblance of a smile.
"I have been made a meal of."
Gabriel turns to check the flap, that no one has followed him inside.
"What is a man without his mount? A dragoon?"
Larry murmurs, the words soft and mocking.
"A knight unhorsed, stumbling into the mire. Tell me, do you still hear it? That call to stand?"
He pauses.
"We are the shadow that endures, the will that bends but does not break. Perhaps it watches you now. Perhaps it laughs."
His fingers twitched, claw-like against the rag, a deliberate tremor that seemed to beckon. Gabriel frowns, his grip tightening on the pistol.
"What call? Speak plain, Larry."
But the surgeon only tilts his head further, the hollow sockets unblinking voids. His voice dropping to a whisper.
"Run, if you think it matters. See what waits beyond."
A twitch ripples through him. His head jerks once, subtle, then stills. But the eyeless gaze holds, a silent challenge. Gabriel rises, backing towards the flap, before lifting the pistol and firing. The picket line lies ahead, but the camp is thick with them now. Staggering, chasing figures weaving through the flickering light. He skirts a fire, its flames casting harsh shadows across his sweat-streaked face, the heat licking at his skin. A woman turns mid-step, her shawl trailing as she lunges at a fleeing boy, her hands clawing at his back. Gabriel pushes forwards, his leg a numb weight dragging behind him, the pain a distant roar. Horses rear in the darkness, two still tied to the picket line, their eyes wild with panic. He needs one, needs the speed, the power. A shape looms. A dragoon from his own regiment, his chest a gaping ruin of grape shot, uniform tattered. He charges, arms flailing. Gabriel pivots, the sabre arcing up to slice through the neck. A clean cut, born of years of repetition. Blood sprays, dark and thick, and the head rolls into the mud. But another comes, a camp follower, her skirts dragging through the mire, her face frozen with a look of elation as she rushes him. She's fast, her nails raking across his face, sinking into his left eye. There's a wet burst, a sickening pop, as the socket gives. Blood flooding down his cheek in a hot torrent. Pain explodes, blinding and raw, and he roars. He swings the sabre blindly, his vision halved. He feels the blade sink deep, crunching through bone. She collapses, a heap at his feet, and he staggers back, his hand pressing against the socket. Empty as that wretched surgeon's, a pulped mess of flesh and blood. The world reduced to a single, flickering eye. The pain is wildfire, but duty is a cold voice in his skull. Move. Go. Live. He stumbles forward, sabre dripping, one-eyed and relentless. He reaches the picket line, his breath ragged, each movement a fresh agony as blood streams from the ruined socket. Two horses remain, rearing against their ropes, their coats slick with sweat. He slashes the nearest rope with a trembling hand, the blade nicking his own knuckles, and he hauls himself onto a bay mare. Every muscle screams, his leg a dead weight. But he grips the saddle and throws himself across her. The camp blurs around him, tents collapsing into flames, screams rising and falling, figures swarming through the chaos. One grabs at his boot, and he swings the sabre down, feels the wrist snap under the steel, and the mare lurches forward, breaking free. A copse looms ahead, a dark promise of shelter, and he kicks her on, his will a whip against the pain. The trees close around him, their branches tearing at his coat, snagging on the crusted ruin of his socket, tearing at the raw flesh with every jolt. The mare's breath steams in the cool night air, her hooves sinking into the mud as she gallops, her flanks heaving beneath him. The camp's roar fades to a distant echo, a cacophony of fire and the sound of humanity. Laughter, screams, shouting. But he doesn't slow. Can't slow. His leg hangs useless, blood soaking the saddle, and the fever burns through him, a heat that seeps into his bones. The copse thins, opening onto a low ridge overlooking the stream below, its waters glinting under the moon. He reins the mare in, her side shuddering as she snorts, and he steadies himself, his eyes straining against the darkness. His breath comes in harsh gasps, the socket pulsating with every heartbeat. But he listens. Silence, at first. A fragile pause. Then, a sound rises, low and vast. A rumble swelling from the shadows beyond the horizon. He squints, his vision narrowed, but sharp. He sees it in the fields, a distance from the chaos of the camp. A line of movement, thickening as it spreads across the plain, stretching miles in every direction. An army, tens of thousands strong, marching. Some breaking into a run, a tide rolling towards the camp with relentless purpose. The English and the Prussians, he thinks, his mind grasping for order. Returned to finish what Waterloo began, to seal this cursed place shut, to bury the shame of defeat beneath their boots. Duty stirs in his chest. A flicker of the old code. Warn the camp. Rally what's left. Fight if he must. He tightens his grip on the reins, his jaw setting, ready to turn back. Then, the truth crashes through as the first ranks of this army reach the light of the burning camp. They're too fast. Too quiet. A revelation that chills the fever in his veins. There are no banners fluttering in the wind. No drums beating time. No glint of steel or flash of redcoats. A sea of charging bodies. Their movements a grotesque parody of order. Not English. Not Prussian. They're gone. Turned. Every last one of them. The victors of Waterloo, consumed by the same shadow that's devoured the camp. The glow of the burning infirmary tents wink in the distance. A fragile light against the dark. And then, the wave strikes. It's a tide of flesh. Tens of thousands strong, trampling and stampeding over the camp with a force that shakes the earth beneath the ridge. Tents collapse like paper, their frames snapping under the weight. Fires snuffed out in an instant as the mass surges forward. Screams rise, a brief, desperate chorus, then choke into silence, swallowed by the crush. Canvas rips. Wood splinters. Bodies vanish beneath the flood. The camp washed away as if it were no more than a mark on a beach erased by the sea. The sheer scale of it, the endless writhing press of bodies, staggers him. A spectacle of ruin too vast to comprehend. The mare trembles beneath him, her ears pinned back, and he sits frozen, his single eye wide, with fever a dull roar in his skull. The Empire was gone, slain at Waterloo. And now all remnants scoured away in this dank little valley. And now? He shifted in the saddle. The familiar weight. There is another enemy. A new enemy. He turns the mare eastward, away from the tide, and kicks her into a weary gallop as he rides into the dark.